Senate will come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we're led in prayer by the senior senator from the 8th. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senator from Tucker leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, as we begin this morning, we give you thanks for another day. Father, as we gather in this chamber, may we be reminded of your presence. I pray that you grant us wisdom and guidance. I ask, Father, as we begin this 22 session, Lord, give us clear direction upon the decisions we make for the present and the future of this state. I humbly ask for the peace of mind, Father, for the health of our bodies, and the strength to carry out your plans and your will. We pray your kingdom come, your will be done, and in the name of Jesus I ask, and amen.
Thank you. Senator from Tucker.
Will the members and guests join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, Charleston, West Virginia, Monday, January 10th, 2022. Pursuant to the proclamation of His Excellency the Governor, the Honorable Jim Justice, dated the 8th day of January, 2022.
The junior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. Senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seated in the President's Gallery is Coco Ackham. She's born in South Africa and she's lived in Switzerland, London, and currently based in Hollywood. Ms. Ackham raises venture capital, builds smart cities, and is in renewable energy space. She's currently in West Virginia prospecting for potential investment. Senate, please join me and make her welcome.
Further introductions. Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand in recess until 10 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senior senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to make an announcement to the body. There'll be a resolution tomorrow about Prevention Day, substance use prevention, and since we don't have the normal calendar on the first day, if folks want to be able to sign on to that, please just stop by the clerk's office. Thank you.
Further announcements? If not, the question before the Senate is the Senate stand in recess until 10 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in recess till 10 a.m.
The House will please be in order. Those persons not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time, and members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by the gentleman from the 40th, Delegate Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we come to the Lord in prayer this morning, I would like to open with scripture from Proverbs found on the north entrance to this building. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy gettings get understanding. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, above all, to give thanks for the many blessings that you've poured out on us and the great state of West Virginia. Let us serve you in a way that brings glory to your name. Let us find wisdom and gain understanding through you so that we may best serve our state. We ask this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Members and guests, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance as we are led by the gentleman from the 53rd, Delegate Jennings.
Please join with me with pledging our allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Monday, January 10th, 2022.
Gentleman 54th, Delegate Hott.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman 54th asks unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Introduction of guests, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, message from the executive.
House Executive Message number 1. Dear Speaker Hanshaw, the following is the FY 2022 official estimate, general revenue, statement of revenues by source, which I submitted as revised to you on June 24, 2021 for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. The following is the General Revenue Fund Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and Changes in Cash Balance, which I submitted as revised to you on June 24, 2021 for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
The message will be received. Are there further executive messages? If not, Senate messages, resolutions, petitions, motions, bills introduced, unfinished business, bills on third reading, bills on second reading.
Senate Bill 1001, West Virginia Industrial Advancement Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. There are amendments.
Delegates Rowe and Pushkin move to amend the bill. This is HFA Rowe and Pushkin 1-11.
Gentleman 36, Delegate Rowe is recognized.
With permission of the body, I'd move that the amendments be withdrawn.
Are there objections from the body? No objections are heard. The amendments will be withdrawn. Are there further amendments?
That was all of okay. No.
Bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage.
The lady from the 49th moves that the constitutional rule requiring the bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with, that the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed to the motion will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 79 ayes, 15 nays, and 6 members absent, 4/5 of members present. Voting in the affirmative, the chair declares the motion adopted. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Senate Bill 1001, West Virginia Industrial Advancement Act.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 64th, Delegate Householder, explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of the bill would provide tax credits and tax exemptions for certain manufacturers that invest in a project certified as a qualified labor-intensive heavy industrial manufacturing project. by a duly authorized representative of the West Virginia Department of Economic Development on or after January 1, 2022, in which the taxpayer, 1, invests at least $2 billion in property purchased for manufacturing investment and placed in service or put in use at an industrial facility in this state, and 2, hire at least 500 full-time employees during the period beginning with the date of the first property purchase for manufacturing investment in this state and ending within 36 months after the taxable year in which at least $2 billion in property purchased for manufacturing investment is placed in service or put in use at an industrial facility in the state, and 3, meets the definition of manufacturing under this article. The bill also says that full-time employee means an employee employed in the state for at least an average of 140 hours per month during employment with an average hourly wage, including employee benefits of more than 200% of the prevailing federal minimum wage, effective as of the date of certification of a taxpayer as a qualified labor-intensive heavy industrial manufacturing project. The bill also suggests that the amount of the allowable credit under this article is equal to 50% of the cost of the property purchased for the qualified manufacturing investment, where the useful life of the property purchased is 4 years or more, against the taxpayer's corporate net income tax or personal income tax as determined by the tax commissioner. Now, if such property is disposed of or ceases to be used in an industrial facility of the taxpayer in this state before the end of its useful life, then the unused purchase or the unused portion of the tax credit is forfeited, and the taxpayer must pay the taxes owed due to the reduction of the property's useful life. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman at 36, Doug Rose, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the gentleman would respond to some questions.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I should say that Finance yesterday had a good session, and we did explore the details of the bill, but I wanted to make sure that I'm correct that the tax credits never expire. In other words, once they're earned, they never expire.
The gentleman's correct.
Is that unusual in the way we usually write tax credit budgets?
I think because of the value of the project, it would take a very, very long time for all those tax credits to be used, because remember, this bill is directed at a $2 billion investment. So an investment of that size, they would be eligible for a $1 billion tax credit, so it would take many, many, many years.
Also, it's allowed that the manufacturer can have associated companies, and I don't think they have to be related to the manufacturing process. There's nothing in the bill to require it.
I think you're referring to the sales tax exemption?
Well, actually, to any of the tax credits can be sold or provided to members in the group.
No, the tax credit cannot be sold. It's specifically
Right.
for that manufacturer.
But I mean, within the group, the group could pay, if they're in the group that applies, then they could pay for getting the credits if that was the organization.
As long
allowed.
as a couple criteria is met. There has to be a $2 billion investment and hire at least 500 employees.
Well, but that $2 billion investment can be strung out over a long period. It's probably not going to be a lump sum investment, is it? Is that anticipated?
No, it has to be within 36 months, Delegate.
The $2 billion has to pay within.
Yes.
Now, the 500 employees have to be kept for 36 months after the $2 billion has been paid. Is that correct? I think that's in the...
No, they have to be hired within the first 36 months. It says here, hire at least 500 full-time employees, beginning with the date of the first property purchased for manufacturing investment in the state and ending within 36 months after the taxable year in which at least $2 billion in property was purchased.
But the way I read that is that it actually is providing that the guarantee of 500 full-time employees only extends to 36 months after the $2 billion is paid. And you don't read it that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't read it that way.
So if the plant were to automate, $2 billion being paid, and then the plant automated in 3 years, we would lose the 500 jobs, or we could, but that's not the way you read it.
I can't answer that, Delegate.
As I understand the certification process, they don't have to have done it. They just need to be expected to hire the 500 and to make the investment, correct?
No, that's not in the bill, Delegate.
I think in finance we were told that this is the largest tax credit that's ever been given by the state of West Virginia. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct, Delegate.
And also, in addition to the tax credit of $1 billion, the state is going to write checks for $315 million, correct?
As the delegate's aware, we heard testimony that there are several steps. The first step, that is a requirement, the company will have to purchase $500 million worth of investment and have invoices before we release the first $125 million. And then the company must have an additional $250 million, so it'd be at $750 million investment before we release the next $150 million. And then the third component, they have to purchase and construct a building, I believe, in the Wheeling area before they're released the final $40 million.
Now, the total checks that the state would write would be for, is it $315 million?
The total amount of the investment is $315 million.
And is that also the largest single payment to any corporate entity
not
ever?
certain. I don't know, Delegate. So, sorry.
I recollect, but I may be wrong. I recollect that the tax commissioner indicated that was, but maybe I'm wrong on that. And do you think, sir, that we have sufficient guardrails and stops in this bill to assure that our investment will be returned as we expect?
I really do, and like I discussed earlier with you, and just like we heard testimony in finance, that the guardrails that you're looking for is the clawback provisions. If they do not meet any of these requirements, we have the ability to retroactively claw back all of any money that we have invested with this company.
But that's also on the assumption that the company is solvent enough to be able to pay those sums if needed.
Well, you would have assets and everything else, so yes.
And going back a moment to the credits and being able to go, there's nothing to prevent the manufacturer, including in the group of associated entities, say a bank, where it would be involved and would be able to receive the tax credits, correct?
I don't quite understand your question. Ask it again. I'm sorry.
As I read the bill, I'm surprised to not see that the affiliated companies have to be associated with the manufacturing process in order to get the credits transferred to them away from the taxpayer.
I understand what you're saying. So if they're part of the group, then they're eligible for the tax credit.
Right.
If they're part of the group.
Right. And it doesn't matter that they may not have anything to do with the manufacturing process.
As long as they're part of the group.
Thank you, sir. Speak to the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an interesting concept. It's a dangerous concept. As you might know, and when you go back to talk to folks at home, we're going to have to explain how it is that we gave $1 billion in tax credits plus $315 million in funding by checks. And as we heard from the chair, the checks won't come until some performance has been provided. The tax credits are ones that don't ever exhaust. They never go away. They're always can be cashed in. They can be provided to members of the group, which could be a bank, could be anybody as long as they're in the group. And there's no requirement that to get the benefit of tax credits that you have to be a part of the manufacturing process. As I read the bill, this is, of course, is coming at us pretty quickly, And I know we've suspended rules, and it took substantially all of the body to agree to that, but we are proceeding, I think, uncautiously into deep water that ought to have been dealt with during the session, where we would be able to hear folks and have responses. We got the bill yesterday. It's been about, maybe 24 hours that we've had to work on this. Whether it's a good project or not, that's pretty fast, and the amount of money involved is staggering. So be confident that we will all be asked questions when we leave the building about how it came about and what the benefit's going to be. The understanding, as I am told, is that the project will be in Mason County, where there's a very large piece of land that can be developed for this. A port may be necessary, but it would be a very major manufacturing process. I've not had the benefit of knowing who the company is. We have been assured over and over and over in finance that it is a Fortune, I think it's Fortune 500 company, or I get confused on those financial namings, but that it's a substantial company with substantial assets. The jobs would pay, I don't know if I can call it prevailing wage, but the federal prevailing minimum wage times 2 would be what the wage rate is, and benefits, health and retirement, would be included in the package. Now, whether they're in addition to that financial wage amount or not, I'm not sure, as I read the bill, whether it was that the benefits were an add-on on top of the times 2 wage amount. But in any event, they're very substantial jobs, and they would be in the manufacturing process. And of course, all of us want very desperately to have industrial wage jobs returned to the Mountain State. And if we got that to happen, then of course we'd all be in pretty good shape on that. It may be a tough vote whenever you consider how staggering the numbers are, and the tax credits, and the amount of cash that we're giving of $315 million. But if it produces a plant in Mason County that employs 500, the state tax department said that they thought it would be more like 800 jobs. If it employs that number of people at an industrial wage, then that's certainly a great benefit to the state, and that's really what we have to balance in our vote today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman 66, Douglas Espinosa, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm certainly pleased to stand in support of this legislation. During our consideration in finance, was really pleased to hear what I think is an affirmation from our state economic development officials that because of the policies that we've enacted here in recent years, we're finally getting the types of looks similar to what we have here before us. And for me, it's not really a difficult call at all. You look at some of the economic impact of figures that have been put together by the WVU, Department of Business and Economics. Over 10 years, they estimate that the economic impact of this facility will be $25 billion. $25 billion for a relatively modest investment in infrastructure, which I think certainly we have to be prepared if we're going to try to attract these type of projects. Certainly that seems a fairly reasonable investment. Of course, there is a tax incentive that we're providing, but you look at my colleague from 36 indicated 800 direct jobs, an untold number of indirect jobs as far as the spin-off companies that would be required in order to support this operation. Some of the salaries that have been described, somewhere averaging in excess of $90,000. I mean, these are good jobs, great benefits. So again, for me, not a difficult call at all, and I certainly would encourage your support of this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The lady in the 35th, Doug Young, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Chair of Finance yield for a couple questions?
Yes.
Thank you. I like my friend from the 66, I'm excited about this potential, but I'm not in finance, so I've just got a couple questions. My friend from the 36 asked about full-time employees. So 500 employees, right? Okay.
That's what was stated in finance. Yes.
Awesome. And they have to be paid 200% of the minimum wage?
Correct.
Is that the minimum wage right now or the minimum wage whenever?
Of the federal minimum wage.
When the bill's enacted?
When they start out.
Okay, so if the minimum wage changes, that 200% is not going to change?
No, I think the 200%
Well, I guess it
would change, yes. So
Well, would they still have to pay 200% of the federal minimum wage?
that's what it says, 200% of the federal minimum wage.
I thought it was when the certification happened. Effective as the date of certification?
Yeah, effective as of the date of certification of a taxpayer as a qualified labor-intensive heavy industrial manufacturing project.
So right now, that would be about $15, right?
Roughly, yes.
Including benefits under $15.
Correct.
Okay, so if the minimum wage were to change to 15 at some point, this percentage would not change.
That's correct.
Okay, so, okay, gotcha. Okay, a couple questions about the certification process. The certification is going to be through the Department of Economic Development.
That's correct.
What does that process look like? I know there's a couple things they have to meet, but I guess I don't understand the certification.
So the development office will be determining the complete certification under legislative rules.
And under legislative rules, I noticed that this whole bill's in tax code, but we're giving the Department of Economic Development rulemaking authority within tax code. Is that something they have in tax code?
No. Yeah, that's not infrequent, I'm being told.
So this is the first time they're going to be able to make rules about taxes?
Yeah, they're making rules about the process, not about taxes.
Does it say that? I thought it was just about anything in this bill.
Well, it says under rulemaking, in order to effectuate the purpose of this article, the tax commissioner may promulgate procedural rules, interpretive rules, and legislative rules, including emergency rules, or any combination thereof in accordance with Chapter 29A. And it says also, continues to say, it says, in order to effectuate the purposes of this article, the Department of Economic Development or any agency, division, or subdivision thereof may promulgate procedural rules, interpretive rules, and legislative rules.
So could they be making tax rules?
They won't.
But they could.
No. I believe the tax commissioner would.
Okay. Okay. And so back to the certification really quickly. Is the certification to make it so not any company that meets these rules could get these credits, which I think is a good thing?
I think the certification process is, this bill is set up for any company that invests $2 billion. This bill would apply.
But they'd have to be certified, right?
Yes.
Okay. And are any of these, I wasn't in finance, but I read some articles about what happened yesterday, and it sounds like, are any of these tax credits new, or are they just kind of bundled together?
A lot of these are existing tax credits that we have in code currently.
Okay.
Under the manufacturing tax credits.
Okay. Could a company, like, I remember the downstream manufacturing, could somebody take advantage of both of those?
I believe they could, yes, if it's available for them.
Okay. And then the process of how they redeem the credits, is it kind of like a step-down process where, is it first corporate net income tax? That's my understanding.
They would elect, you would think a company of that size, they would use it for their corporate net income.
Okay, so
I mean,
corporate.
The bill addresses clear down to a sole proprietor. I mean, would there be a sole proprietor that would ever come in and invest $2 billion? Possibly.
We hope so.
Yes. Yeah.
So it would be corporate net income tax, and then once they've not paid those taxes, then they can go to flow-through entities and then personal income tax, or can they kind of pick and choose?
I believe they would probably use corporate net income tax.
Okay. I think that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
The gentleman first, Douglas Teslo, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an interesting day for me. Being a child of a steel town and listening to what the representatives had to say about this opportunity. I can say a few things, and a steel mill is kind of an awesome place. It's hard to explain. When you go there, it's kind of you get kind of awestruck because of the scale of the industry and that type of thing. I have always maintained that we have more energy than we need in this state, and what we need to do is corral as many industries that can add value to our energy for the benefit of the state of West Virginia and its people. I can tell you that my father was a metallurgist, and one of the things that he really disliked, you know, as the years wore on, is the technology in Weirton did not allow for long, wide bands of steel to be produced, and frankly, everything that he wanted is in this mill. An 84-inch mill is something that's real important. I don't know whether some of the fellows up in my neck of the woods can agree with that, but I think they can. It causes so much flexibility in what you can do with the material. So, I am, the technology that I grew up with and worked in and was responsible for my education is here. What they're talking about here is, you know, I'm not sure how far up it goes, but it's pretty high. That is good for the future because basically we start from a very strong position and we can start to add value with downstream manufacturing from the source. I will caution the body, though. This is the start of something really good. This is not the end of anything. The hard work comes now. We have lots of work to do. If we keep doing what we're doing right now, working hard, we'll succeed because we have the base load of energy and we have a good location. But boy, I'll tell you, I mean, if we stop and say, this is it, this is all there is, we will fail. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're ready to do that. I join with all my colleagues who support this bill. I can't tell you what an exciting time it is, even though it's not in Weirton. But that's okay. It's good for the state. It's something that's needed, and I think it's in a really good location vis-a-vis the Midwest and industrial centers of the country. So I couldn't support it more. I'm real happy that it's here, and I think the hard work starts now. I'm ready to do what I can. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of 56, Douglas Howell, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chairman of Finance yield?
Yes.
During the process of this, we understood that we were in the running with two other states, which I believe were Ohio and Pennsylvania, for this. Had this company chosen, say, the Pittsburgh area, would they have paid any taxes into West Virginia?
No.
If they just picked like the Cincinnati area, would they have paid any taxes into
They
West
would
Virginia?
not.
So when we give these tax incentives and tax breaks to these companies, we're not really giving anything away because if we didn't, they wouldn't be here.
The gentleman's correct, and as we heard from the testimony in finance, the economic impact to the state was at a $25 billion impact, so to the positive.
And if I'm correct on that, that comes from everything from maybe their customers or even their suppliers,
all the ancillary,
locating close to them, even down to a small level like the 7-Eleven has to add workers for shift change on our entry-level jobs, and you know the local trucking company has to hire some additional truckers to take care of the
hotel
plant.
has to be built or whatever.
Hotel
yes.
has to be. So even, and those industries are not getting these tax breaks. Whatever tax breaks we have on the books, they may be able to take advantage of, but otherwise we're going to get taxes from them that had they located in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh, we would never get.
The gentleman's correct.
And I heard some talk about this requires them to pay at least double the federal minimum wage plus benefits. And I know we had done some research, and I believe the average salary in this industry is somewhere around $96,000 a year.
The gentleman's correct, yes.
Yeah, and so I calculated out if you worked 52 weeks a year, which I don't think anybody does unless you're maybe self-employed, and 40-hour week, that would be $46 an hour, not
pay.
counting their benefits.
It's good pay.
That would be one of the highest paying jobs in West Virginia.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't really see a downside to this. We're not giving anything away because they're not here.
Right.
And when they come here, we get benefits not just from that company, but from everything, the growth that it creates.
The gentleman's correct.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman second, Douglas Nasario, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speak to the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, and I'd follow up a little bit with my friend from the first. We are from the same steel area. I spent most of my career working in steel mills, and I'm certainly not standing today in opposition of this legislation. In our area, Delegate Zeteslow and myself, in 2004 was built the world's largest electric arc furnace. It's in Mingo Junction, Ohio, built using 100% union crafts in the trades. We also have roll coaters, we have Wheeling Nippon, and we have Ohio Coatings that are coating plants. One of the drawbacks with our electric arc furnace is they melt strictly scrap metal, whatever comes in. And I asked a question the other day to the company of whoever was coming in, and they assured us that they can add additives to this metal to make it as strong and what we need to build bridges and use in construction. That's not really what I stood to talk today. I wanted to follow up on my friend from the first. And those of you that know me probably have an idea where I'm going with this, and it is to not miss an opportunity. I've heard several times of what's going to come after this, the ancillary jobs, the other industries coming. And we all know this bill right now is to help a company build a steel mill, but it's a much more comprehensive bill than that. I'm troubled with what the rush is. What else bothers me are we are completely silent about who's going to build these very large facilities. Completely silent. If you look in Kentucky right now, is building a steel mill over there, and sorry, thank you, Sean. They're building a steel mill over there. The majority of the workers building that mill are from the Gulf Coast. Good for workers in the Gulf Coast, not so good for Kentuckians. Sometimes on comprehensive projects like this, we're contemplating with this bill, the largest economic impact comes from the project. These jobs can be essential to our construction workers, the families, the opportunities for our laid-off coal miners. Other West Virginians who need good jobs. If I had time to do an amendment, which this is the problem with the rush, if I had time to do amendment, it would probably look something like this. It would add an incentive for contractors to build these qualifying facilities to hire local construction workers. The incentive, not a mandate, but a carrot, would say to these companies, you hire our highly skilled, drug-free, safety-trained workers, and we'll reward you. We can match the reward with jobs, good pay, benefits, companies who use trained employees and trained apprentices in drug-free workplace. There's more that I can do on the floor today. It's a big bill. It's very comprehensive. Perhaps something we can work on this coming session, I think starts tomorrow. And I'll close by saying that when companies hear that we encourage local, drug-free workers They listen to us. But when we remain silent and don't say a word about who's not only going to build this facility, but all the facilities that could come to our great state and help our citizens, we're completely silent. And I'm asking you, let's not miss an opportunity to make jobs for the people in the Gulf Coast. Let's make them for people from West Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 35th, Douglas Pack, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, and I just want to say a few words about why I'm supporting this investment, why I'm supporting these jobs, and this economic opportunity. Under Governor Justin's leadership and working with this body and State Senate across the Rotunda, we've made significant investments to set the table for what will likely be the most significant economic development announcement in the state's history, and I'm very excited to be a part of this day. I've only been here for a year, and some of you, though, have been here for a long time, working on improving the Mountain State's attractiveness to job creators, enacting policies to equip our workforce, providing resources to rebuild our infrastructure needed for the type of significant economic development announcement this bill will enable. We've committed billions of dollars through the Roads of Prosperity to pave highways, build roads, and fix neglected bridges across our state. We've taken steps to make our legal system fair and impartial for all West Virginians so they'll have an equitable day in court. We've made education our centerpiece. We provided our teachers and school service personnel with a 10% raise just a few years ago. And we're going to consider another 5% in just a few weeks. We provided educational opportunities and freedom for parents to choose the best education path for their children. In addition, we made community and technical colleges free for all those who need it. And that way we'll have the tradesmen, we'll have the electricians, the HVAC, the plumbers, and the dozer movers to start this project due to this legislation. Our colleges and universities have partnered with world-class leaders like John Chambers, Brad Smith, and they provide tremendous educational opportunities for our students to learn from the best and the brightest for the next generation of leaders in West Virginia. These investments have laid the groundwork for us to support this piece of legislation, which will bring over $2.5 billion in investment, over 800 full-time jobs, over 1,000 construction jobs to our state. Just amazing. We're able to support this legislation and spend these taxpayer dollars because of the responsible leadership of Governor Justice and the members of this legislature, and I must give a special thanks to our finance chairman. By responsibly managing the size of the state government, growing our economy, and putting West Virginians back to work, we anticipate a record budget surplus for this year, a record rainy day fund balance, and a record low unemployment rate. These policies and the legislation I have mentioned here today, working with Governor Justice, our state Senate colleagues, have allowed us to arrive at this point to support this bill to be part of history. But we're not done. There's more work to do. However, this legislation helps us set the tone for this session that starts tomorrow. I hope we find ourselves coming to this chamber more and more to more and more support opportunities such as this. It must be our objective. We need jobs. We need to grow our population. So in the next 60 days, let's continue to enact good policies that will help West Virginia create more jobs, help West Virginians, improve our economic development, and make West Virginia a destination place to raise a family. I urge support of this bill. I thank Governor Justice and his economic team for the proactive stance on this bill. I thank you, Speaker Hanshaw, Senator Blair, and all of you who work to make policies to make this day possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman with 25th, Douglas Painter, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was wondering if the finance chair would yield for a question.
Yes.
Just for informational sake for the folks watching, would this bill raise taxes on any West Virginian in any way?
Oh, no, this bill does not raise any tax on any West Virginia. In fact, since I'm speaking, I would say that this bill also generates an economic activity where you may have newfound millionaires, and why I say that is you're going to have people now that are willing to take a risk and start a business. So you're going to see so much in ancillary and tertiary businesses develop in this area that it's a windfall for not only the community but for the state. So You're going to see, we heard testimony of over 1,000 construction jobs. So that's huge for the skilled trades and for the merit shop contractors and local contractors. But I think it's going to benefit all West Virginians. And no, there will not be any tax increases on it.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman 51st, Douglas Hanson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I voted against the rule suspension, but I do support this bill. I think it's important for us to grow the manufacturing base in West Virginia with high-paying jobs in a way that is responsible environmentally. And one thing that I'm so excited about with this opportunity is this company's commitment to corporate sustainability and their commitment to manufacture their products with a lower and lower carbon footprint. The types of manufacturing jobs that are going to exist in the future, 5 and 10 years from now, are at companies that have these types of commitments to lower their carbon emissions, because that's where the market is going. That's what's being demanded. So we need to position ourselves in West Virginia so that we could create those types of manufacturing jobs. Now, what that means here from a policy point of view, like others have mentioned, is that there's more work to do. We've already done some good work in the last couple of years. We passed that utility solar bill that will allow companies like this to access renewable electricity in amounts that they would not otherwise have been able to. That's allowing them to meet the demands of their customers. There are other things that we can do to allow access to even greater amounts of renewable energy so that they could reach their goals of having zero carbon products to sell to their customers who are on the path toward demanding zero carbon products. So I wanted to make sure that the body was aware of this aspect as well. This is one thing that makes this investment very exciting for West Virginia and one reason why I'm supporting this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman 17th, Douglas Rohrbach, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go back to 1985 for you. I was a young house officer at the University of Kentucky doing my residency. Legislature and the governor in the state of Kentucky, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, voted on a program very much like this. It involved the Toyota plant in Scott County there at Georgetown. We've actually had a spin-off plan of that here in Putnam County. I went back and did some research, and I remember living there at the time. The governor and the legislature got beat without mercy in the press. It's terrible, too much money. At the time, this 1985, it was $325 million in 1985 dollars. I can say as someone who lived there for 3 years and then came back here, but only lives 125 miles from Lexington, I've certainly done my share of travels there over the years. The effect of that investment in Scott County has revolutionized the central bluegrass region of Kentucky, our border state. There are now factories in Shelbyville, Berea, Richmond, Lexington, Winchester, all because that original plant was located there. So what we're being asked to do here today is a generational investment for our state of West Virginia to revitalize the Ohio Valley, which has lost so much. As I've thought about this, I'm sure our predecessors that were here and in Huntington, Mason County, 100 years ago, we had factories, and this will mean something to the people from that area. American Car and Foundry, Hudai Industries, Owens, Illinois, where my father worked. They're all gone. This is a chance to make a generational investment in the future of this state and to try to get some revitalization going. So I thank the members of this body that are going to vote yes. Frankly, I hope it's all of us, because this investment is needed to revitalize our state. And I would challenge you that if you look at what's happened in the Commonwealth of Kentucky with that investment, I look for just as great things to happen in the state of West Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady in the fourth, Dr. Zukoff's recognized.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to also stand up in support of this bill, but I do so cautiously. I'm excited about the opportunities. I was a student age myself at WVU in 1990, and I remember one of my roommates getting a call. Her mother was employed at the Benwood plant in Wheeling, Pittsburgh Steel, and they laid off and they were shutting the plant down. So our area very much knows what manufacturing can do for a community and what it means to lose that type of an opportunity. So I'm excited for West Virginia for this opportunity. I'm also a little scared. This is a huge deal for our state, the largest we've ever had. I'm a little concerned about the hyperbole that we hear when we talk to the development office. Last week we were told it was 800 jobs. Now I'm hearing through this bill it's 500 jobs. Last week the salaries were 80,000. Today they're 96,000. The hyperbole scares me a little bit because we've all heard of these deals that have never come to fruition before. I'm going to be voting yes for this bill. And I'd also like to remember that we're going to be able to do this because of the federal dollars that are coming into West Virginia that our national folks saw put forth to help our economy. So I'd like to recognize them as well for the folks who voted on the ARP funds. And I think that as we go forward in this session, as we're bringing large manufacture to our state, which I'm ecstatic about, I also think we need to think about all the small businesses in West Virginia that have been hurting through this pandemic, and it could use a shot in the arm with some tax incentives as well. And we have the opportunity to use those ARP funds to do that as well, and I would hope that we would consider that as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman 36, Jacob Barracks, recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everybody. I also voted against the rule suspension, but I am definitely in favor of this bill. I mean, this is something that's very exciting, bringing a lot of jobs to this state. This is what we're here for, and I think all of us are pretty much in support of it. It's very exciting. But with the idea that we're giving away $1 billion in tax credits and $315 million in taxpayer money, I want to be able to go to my constituents and tell them, you know, that we looked at everything very, very carefully. And I just hope we're doing that, because we have had a lot of hyperbole about this. It's come up very quickly, and they say, just trust us on this. And as a taxpayer myself, I want to make sure we're doing the right thing. This kind of reminds me of like going to buy a house. You find a house, and it's this great house, great neighborhood, good price. You love everything about it, and your real estate agent says, well, it's such a great deal, we want to get you in here fast. Let's just ignore the inspection. And you're like thinking, well, I don't know. Let's ask all the questions. Let's make sure we're doing the right thing. What's waiting another 24 hours on this? Is it that important? I mean, I'd like to get all the questions out there. I'm sure everyone's in favor of it. It's probably great, but it would just be comforting to know that we did everything that we could and that we're supposed to do as representatives of the people to make sure we're doing this the right way. And that's all I'm asking, is make sure we do it the right way. Again, I'm in favor of the bill, but let's just proceed with a little bit of caution. That's all I ask. Thank you very much.
The gentleman 26, Doug Evans, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I listened to a radio commentator, I think it was last night, and the individual was talking about the previous deals that the state of West Virginia has tried to make to bring some economic development into West Virginia. They talked about the cracker plant that was to come to Parkersburg, and you know how excited we were, and of course there were announcements made all over West Virginia that would, you know, say how much benefit the state of West Virginia would get. And then there was the China deal where they were to invest $8 billion, you know, into West Virginia. Maybe that'll still happen, I don't know. But it didn't, or hasn't. So, you know, we have to look at it that, you know, we've been burned before. But that doesn't mean you give up trying. I know a fellow, very dear friend of mine, he was talking about how many people that he dated before he married the woman of his dreams. And his words to me were, you don't give up trying. And I hope the state of West Virginia is making the proper investment here. We do not need to give up trying if we ever want our children, our grandchildren, to have a better future here in West Virginia. Yes, I'd like to see some union jobs. Yes, I'd like to, I know they melt a lot of scrap, but I'd like to see some West Virginia coal put into some steel. There's a lot of things I'd like to see. We can't make it perfect. But I think it's a good deal. And I think the state of West Virginia can only benefit from having, you know, more economic investment like this in the future. So I'm a yes vote, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
The gentleman 16th, I got Linville's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come to you today with a word of excitement. This is an exciting day for the state of West Virginia, and tomorrow will be even more so. I'm excited for hundreds of families and thousands of families who are going to be able to depend on new jobs, but not just jobs, careers. Good paying jobs, jobs where they can grow within a company and they can retire with significant benefits. What we have before us is an enormous opportunity. There's been a lot of discussion about caution, and I'd like to address maybe a few of those points. On page 7 of the bill, there was the gentleman from the 36th had asked many similar questions yesterday, the tax commissioner, related to, you know, these pass-through entities and those sorts of things. And the commissioner testified, if the gentleman will recall, that it all had to be related. And what you end up with is, you know, a company will set up a subsidiary for certain types of employment, things like tech employment and those sorts of things, providing services. I've seen it in many of my customers in the private sector. But again, page 7, line 31, discusses the eligible flow-through entities. And it specifically says that in the gentleman's concern there relative to could a bank invest here and offset their corporate net income tax in the state of West Virginia, the answer to that's no, directly pursuant to the bill, because it says that it can only offset income directly derived by the owner from the eligible taxpayer, right? And so if and only if they were making money from this exact deal, right? So again, I think that concern is both refuted by testimony from the tax commissioner and you know, a non-starter. What we heard yesterday in finance was that this is the equivalent of bundling together many of the other tax credits for manufacturing that already exist in the West Virginia Code. So there's been a lot of discussion that, hey, this is some sort of major you know, tax break for one particular company, and I would argue that that's not actually the case. It's just a simplification. And to be even more direct, just last year, we passed a bill that changed the corporate net income tax calculation in the state of West Virginia to a single sales factor. So what that means is, unless they're selling their product to customers within the state of West Virginia, they never had any corporate net income taxes that they needed to pay. So I've heard a lot of discussion that, hey, this is $1 billion tax credit minimum that we're handing out. The reality is, they likely would never have $1 billion tax liability in the first place. So we're simplifying tax credits that are in the code. Then we're making an investment. And everybody's talking, it seems like, about, whether we should or shouldn't be doing this in this arena. And I've heard someone say we're picking winners and losers. The winners that we're picking are West Virginians. That's the winners that we're picking. We're picking West Virginia. We're picking 800 careers in the state of West Virginia, thousands of construction jobs in the state of West Virginia. We're picking a green environmental steel manufacturer powered with an electric arc furnace, smelted in an electric arc furnace powered by coal. So the gentleman said he'd like to see some coal in this process. Thermal coal is in this process. And then on top of that, we're picking the electric ratepayers in the state of West Virginia. On the way in on the radio this morning, I was hearing people discussing, continually rising electricity rates, and in this period of inflation, we've got some difficulties there, certainly. This company, this plant, will instantaneously be the largest electricity consumer in Appalachian Power's territory in the state of West Virginia. You're going to move those regulatory costs, those fixed costs of running our coal-fired power plants and all those sorts of things, which are now going to stay here through 2040, which has been widely criticized. It's going to power that plant. It's going to put miners to work. It's going to offset or lower electricity rates for people in the state of West Virginia. West Virginia is a winner, everybody. I urge you to support this bill, and I think it's a no-brainer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate on the bill? The gentleman with 13th, Doggett Penson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the privilege to speak on the House floor in relation to the bill that's before us. I remember sitting as a young police officer in 2008, and I heard our then governor speak to a group similar to this. And he spoke about how West Virginia could not compete on several levels with other states when it came to business climate and attracting businesses specifically related to taxes. He made the comment, our state cannot compete with many other states when it comes to the tax incentives and opportunities that those states can provide. And as a young police officer sitting there, I asked the question then, why? Why can't we compete? Well, we fast forward now to 2022, and we find that we are competing. As a resident of Mason County and as a representative of Mason County serving in the House of Delegates, I stand today in support of this bill. It's been mentioned that we're in uncharted waters, that this is scary, that this is dangerous. Well, can I just mention to the body today that we are not in uncharted waters. What we're doing here today has been done hundreds and thousands of times in other states all across our country. I'll speak about that in just a moment. The bill that's before us today simply does three things. Number one, it allows us to compete with other states. As we look in 2019, there were 2,437 incentive packages offered to companies if they would locate in a particular state. 2,437 of these same discussions took place. Over $6 billion was offered by way of incentive. Who leads the pack in offering these incentives for companies to come to their state? Who leads the pack? Pennsylvania, with 299 incentives offered in 2019. Right behind Pennsylvania, we find Ohio with 212 incentives offered. And then right behind Ohio, we find Kentucky with 185 incentive packages offered. All of our neighboring states are competing for these companies to come and locate within their borders because they understand the importance. Secondly, this bill allows us to address the infrastructure needs all along the Ohio River and Route 2 region in Mason County. Infrastructure needs which, when the company spends the money, then we come behind with checks and balances and appropriate as the bill states we will. These infrastructure needs will be beneficial for other companies, large and small businesses, as well as all the residents who live and pass through that region. I would argue these infrastructure needs are there and must be addressed regardless whether this one single company comes or not. And then finally, thirdly, we see that this bill provides a minimum, the bill says 500, but in reality, 800 full-time jobs, high-paying careers that allow for families, as my friend from the 16th indicated, allow for families to stay in West Virginia, to choose West Virginia. We've heard the word hyperbole a few times from a few of our respected colleagues. I understand the reasoning for that word. We have had other deals in the past that we have learned about and then have fallen through for one reason or another. But keep in mind, this particular company employs tens of thousands of employees. As the speaker said yesterday in an interview, this is not two men in a truck. This is a well-established world leader that is choosing West Virginia. $25 billion economic impact estimate. Folks, this is a large move. This is a large step. But I'll remind you, it's the single largest private investment in our state's history, and I urge you to vote in favor of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady in the 51st, Douglas Fleshauer is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make 4 points today. First, I want to talk about the timing of this deal. I think it is very unfortunate that we did not at least abide by the constitutional rules that require that every bill be read on 3 separate days. We only have a 60-day session, and that's in there to be sure that we do our due diligence, that we understand the implications of all the words in all the agreements and all the bills that we will be considering. Democrats got the bill on Sunday. Today's Tuesday morning. It would be impossible to digest all of that material in that short amount of time. So that's one reason why I am sad that we didn't take a little bit more time. I have not been given a reason that I think that makes sense about why this had to be rammed through so quickly. The second reason I'm concerned another reason I'm concerned, my second point is about the clawback. The state of West Virginia has never successfully gotten money back from clawback provisions that I am aware of. I have said that several times and no one has corrected me. I'm hoping that the language in this one is improved and that we can be more successful if we're ripped off again. And people have talked about other times when we were ripped off, but let's talk a little bit more about that, because we have been. And it's especially dangerous right now when we are flush with cash from the federal government, that companies might want to come and take advantage of us and our sophistication. Maybe one that is very memorable to people sometimes is called router gates. We, in our previous attempts to expand broadband, spending millions and millions of dollars, we have routers that are sitting idle in every county of the state, sometimes several of them. That cost the state and our taxpayers a lot of money. Prior to that, we made an investment into computers for schools. And there were people that said that they were outdated at the time they were purchased. I think the company's name was Jocelyn. They don't even exist anymore. That was done while I have been a delegate. And then I also recall giving a tax break to Kroger's. And these are not just, everybody's been talking about how this is a Fortune 500 or Fortune 1500 or whatever corporation that we're talking about here. Kroger's is a well-known company, and they invested in a warehouse here in Kanawha County, and they ran off, and they kept the money. And they kept the building. We ended up not owning anything, and we got ripped off. So that's one of the reasons that we have to be really cautious, and I'm sad that we are not being more cautious. Our duty to do due diligence is especially important because of the enormity of this investment. And actually, I don't know that investment is the right word, because we're not going to end up with anything solid. We will not own buildings or anything like that. We are giving cash and giving future tax breaks, and the time, it is not limited in time. I tried to figure out what our investment was per job, and that's a tricky thing. I think we could use a little bit of help from the WVU Economic Bureau. But if you just take $1.3 billion and divide it by 500, actually that's really hard to do because our calculators don't usually have that many digits. But it's $2.6 million per job. If you look at 2,000 construction workers added to that, it's over $600,000 per job. If you, and I don't know how you would calculate the downstream businesses that hopefully will come as a result of that, but obviously that would lower the amount that we are giving to this company. Obviously, that is not something that is available to all of the small businesses in our state that are hanging on by their fingernails. And it's not available to the people, to the companies, to the people who had businesses that lost them during the pandemic and are really, really struggling to stay afloat. So, you know, they wouldn't be eligible for this. None of those entities, which make up the majority of our employers in the state, would be eligible for this kind of benefit. Even though there are very clear risks, there are also very large potential benefits. We all need an injection of hope. We all need more solid jobs. I appreciate that this company is willing to take a chance on our state. I appreciate all the effort that has gone into putting together a project that would appeal to a very large company, because the benefits are also larger than our small businesses. I appreciate the environmental commitment of this company. I appreciate the stated commitment to diversity. I wish this company would be more open-minded to unions, but I'm a believer in discussion, and we can continue those discussions, and that is what our federal law allows, is to continue those debates. So, saying all of that, I have very serious reservations. I have not been able to digest all this in a way that satisfies me at all. I do not see what the rush, I do not think the reasons given for rushing this through made sense. I'm going to vote yes with my fingers crossed.
Lady from the 49th, Douglas Summers, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague from the 51st and I did have some discussions about failures of the past, Kroger, Routergate, all of these different kind of business dealings that have fallen through. What I hope, though, is that we've learned from those failures, that we don't quit or we don't stop trying because we care about the people of West Virginia. We push ahead time and time again because we're fighters. We're West Virginians, and we want our people to prosper. I urge passage.
The gentleman from the 34th, Douglas Boggs, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the bill. Sure, there's reservations, concerns, Everybody has those. I'm very, very trying to look at this objectively. We all represent our constituents. If this was going to be in Gilmer or Braxton County or Clay County or Calhoun County or any place in central West Virginia, and I'd be all over this. But I've got to look at this for the good of the whole state, because we may be elected in our district, but we're here to represent the entire state. And I think this is a good opportunity. Certainly, there are risks in just about everything, but I think certainly the possibility of good outweighs any reservations that I might have. However, I would be remiss if I didn't stand and say this. We talked about the ancillary jobs. We talked about the ones that will come down the pike. For heaven's sakes, let's not, as a body, and I challenge the Senate and I challenge the administration and all of the agencies, let's not forget about our small businesses that are already here, that are struggling. But more importantly, if we have these spin-off businesses, obviously they're not going to be able to take advantage of the kind of breaks that we're giving this entity. But sometimes it only takes a little bit of an incentive. Maybe DOH has a piece of property that's not being used, that will never be used. Surely to goodness, we don't need to hold up these small businesses or potential businesses and be a disincentive by trying to hold them hostage for ridiculous amounts of money for little pieces of property. If we're going to open the floodgates and we're going to try to really do things to benefit the state, let's try to at least, if we can't give everybody the same benefits we're giving this entity, then let's try to do something proactive to make sure that we don't discourage the small businesses that can come as a result of this. Because I think if that's the case, then I think we're just going to sow more dissension, more distrust, and more of a split between giving the farm away to the big guys and not taking care of the small businesses. I don't think that's the intention of this body, but this is something we just can't ignore because it happens. I've experienced it. I'm sure most of you have experienced it in your district. So let's try to enact some legislation and get the administration to enact some policies. They're going to deal more openly and even-handedly to encourage these small businesses while we're reaping the benefits of these large ones. I urge passage. Thank you.
Gentleman 36, Doggett Rowe, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to follow up on my point of order from yesterday regarding the fiscal note. If that's been available, I don't see it on the system, but is it available to us?
It has been distributed to all members.
On our desks? I didn't.
In your House email account.
House email.
It was distributed to all members earlier today.
I didn't see it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
May I speak to the bill?
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
This is my second time. I just want to say that a part of the vetting process that we're supposed to go through is to use our committee structure. And because we are here 24 hours approximately with this bill, it's been vetted only by the Finance Committee. It's not gone through Energy and Manufacturing, Workforce, or Small Business and Economic Development, which during a regular session, it probably would get more committee references, gives different folks some new eyeballs to look at the bill and see what it says. It's an interesting bill and very difficult to understand because much of the operative language is in the definitional section rather than set forth in how it is supposed to work. The bill is very interesting, and the possibilities are absolutely wonderful. And my intention is to vote in favor of the bill, but again, I am very concerned about our process, our legislative process in determining this, and I still leave with the question, why is it that this is in a special session and not in the regular session to be considered where it can be fully vetted on a timely basis? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For the benefit of all members, please indulge the chair to respond a little more fully to the gentleman's point of order and follow-up request from just now. The chair has advised that in addition to the fiscal information provided to all members this morning, also in the system for availability of all members on House Bill 101, which is the companion bill to the bill before the body right now. On House Bill 101 is the fiscal note prepared by Legislative Services that would look similar to what members would typically expect for legislation that comes before this body. Chair is advised by the staff that that document's also being circulated around to all members at this time as well. But those two documents are available for each of the two bills, which are identical in form. Could Chair recognize at this time the gentleman from the 8th, Delegate Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As one of the more senior members of this body, I want to share with you that this is the most significant economic development project in this state in my career, and I enthusiastically support it. I want to reflect for just a moment, how did we get here? It was legislators who were here over the years that have put together some of the building blocks that put us in this crossroads today. The development of our robust community and technical college system will afford us opportunities to provide anybody, any company investing in this state, a well-trained workforce. Workers' compensation reform in the early 2000s and the privatization and the elimination of a huge debt over the years makes us a more attractive place for investment. We dealt, beginning in 1994, with the unfunded liabilities of our pension system, so potential investors coming to this state will not have to shoulder this legacy from our past. 40-year payout seemed like a long time. 2034 folks will be there. We're well past the halfway point, making us a more attractive place for investment. I want to thank the Governor's Office and the Development Office for their hard work and their negotiations in reaching this agreement with this potential investor. We are at a unique position now in our state's history. We're at a crossroads. Fortunately, we have considerable budget surplus this year. $200 million or so comes from the increase in severance taxes on our mineral industry. And we have a great opportunity to invest this rewards we have right now to create greater opportunity for the citizens of our state. My only regret is this development isn't in Wood County, but Mason County's fine with me because it will benefit West Virginia. It will draw construction workers from many counties in West Virginia. It will draw future employees from many counties in West Virginia. But we're at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads with the surplus in the bank right now and the opportunity to invest it wisely for the future of this state. There's been discussion about potential satellite industries coming in and so on and so forth, and I will not take the time to review that. But as I read this bill, as I studied this bill, as I reflected on this bill, I went back in time probably about 4 centuries. And something that I was forced to memorize, and I've now looked up, from Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar. There is a tide in the affairs of men that taken leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the tide when it serves, or lose our ventures. Mr. Speaker, I enthusiastically support this legislation for the future and to bring back maybe some of the young men and women who have had to leave this state for better job opportunities. It is time that we create good, high-paying job opportunities for our generations right here, right now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to 16th, Doug Mant, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the chairman of finance please yield for a question or two?
Yes.
Thank you. We had heard a little bit ago that we may not, we're going to be investing money that doesn't necessarily come back to us, nothing tangible there. The money that we're spending, if I'm correct, that will go to river, rail, highway?
It could.
Improvements?
The step is they have to invest $500 million
right.
to produce invoices, and
Correct.
then we give them $125 million.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Could you also explain, and I heard this in their presentation the other day, the education benefits that they're going to offer each family? Was that $4,000 a year?
Well, I'm not for certain, and that's not addressed in this bill, so I'd rather not misspeak.
Oh, okay, but yeah. I believe we did.
You can
hear
elaborate
that
if
the
you
other
heard
day.
it, so.
Okay, but that could be another benefit,
Well, that's, yeah,
possibly.
right.
Okay. We have, as a legislature, from past up to now, and I'm finished. May I address the bill, please? Thank you. We have, as a legislature, done a lot of things. In the 3 years I've been here, and the many, many years prior to us that are currently serving have been here, to get to this point. And, it's similar to going out and you're fishing, and you got a fish on the hook. It's important to reel it in, not to let it get off, And you come back home and you spend a day, or you spend a lot of time, in this case, many years. I would like to thank the governor's office. I would also like to thank our economic development office for what they've done in getting this to the point where it is right now. We have an opportunity, and I'm very thankful that I am going to be able to push my green button for this today, for what I would consider, and what many have said in here, one of the most important votes that we've been able to cast as a legislative body. In Cabell County, we're 30 miles from Mason County and from where this is going to go. Currently, we have 450 people out of a job that work for Special Metals right now, and they have been for over 100 days. This will be a big impact, not only in Mason County and over on the western part of West Virginia and a little north of there, but it's going to be in Cabell County as well. And I'm very excited, I'm very proud to be able to hit my green button today to press that and vote for jobs. We're looking between 500 and 800. That's a great thing, and I can't speak for all my delegates, but we have spoken from Cabell County. We're excited for this project, and it's something that's needed right now. And I hope everybody does hit their green button for this. And again, I'm proud to do this, and thank you for your time.
Is there further debate on the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 91 ayes, 2 nays, and 7 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 1001, West Virginia Industrial Advancement Act.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The lady from the 49th moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 88 ayes, 3 nays, and 9 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on second reading.
Senate Bill 1002, making supplemental appropriation of federal funds to Governor's Office Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Are there amendments?
Delegates Doyle, Hansen, and Barrick move to amend the bill. This is HFA Doyle, Hansen, and Barrick 1-11.
The gentleman to 67th, Doug Doyle, is recognized.
Co-sponsors, I ask unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment.
Are objections heard? There are no objections heard. The amendment will be withdrawn. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the constitutional rule requiring the bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with, that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, read a third time, and put upon its passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 78 ayes, 12 nays, and 10 members absent, 4/5 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the motion adopted. The clerk will read the bill a third time.
Senate Bill 1002, making supplemental appropriation of federal funds to Governor's Office Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund.
For what purpose does the gentleman from 67th, Doug Doyle, seek recognition?
To speak to the bill, Mr. Speaker.
If the gentleman will indulge the chair to have the bill explained first, then the chair will recognize the gentleman to speak to the bill.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, I was expecting to do that. I just wanted to hurry up and push the button.
Understood. Doug Householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this supplemental appropriation grants federal revenue spending authority for the Governor's Office Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund and creates new items of appropriations for personal services and employee benefits in the amount of $127,500,000. Line 3, repairs and alterations in the amount of $30,000. Line 4, equipment in the amount of $40,000. Line 5, current expenses in the amount of $40 million. Line 6, buildings in the amount of $20,000. And line 7, other assets in the amount of $400. I urge passage.
Now, gentleman 67th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to vote for the bill. I'm going to vote for the bill because it's part of a package that collectively I think has more good than bad. But when we vote for something that we decide has more good than bad, it's important to be conscious of the things we think are bad. And one of the things that I think is bad about this package is the source of the money in this particular bill. The members know that I had an amendment which I withdrew. I withdrew it because it was technically flawed, as very generously pointed out to me by the distinguished chairman of finance. He is correct, it was flawed. But this leads us to a part of the problem that we face today, which has already been mentioned by a number of people here on the floor, which is we didn't have time to come up with perfected amendments. I really think we should have taken more time to do it, which is why I voted against suspending the rules. However, we are here, and the question now is, really the overall question is, shall the package pass? And not only am I going to vote for this bill, I voted for the last one, I'll vote for the rest of them. But the problem with this particular funding source is it comes from the coronavirus funds in the American Rescue Plan, which I think was very wisely presented to the U.S. Congress by President Joe Biden and passed by the Congress, not in a bipartisan way. And this is money that was intended to help our individual citizens, our friends and neighbors who were suffering from coronavirus. It was not intended to help attract a major manufacturing plant. Now, the argument I've heard from the administration is, the state administration, is that we're not really taking coronavirus funds for this package. What we're doing is we're taking other funds from agencies and replacing that money in each of those agencies with coronavirus funds. And I found it interesting in one of the meetings listening to one of His Excellency's minions say that we're not laundering the money. Well, I would suggest if we're not laundering it, at the very least we're dry cleaning it. And while it may be that there may be a loophole they found in the federal rules, I don't think we should do it. I think if we put our heads to it, we could have found enough money in our surplus to fund this operation that we're doing, rather than taking coronavirus funds. And above the intent of the coronavirus funds, surplus money is in and of itself one-time money. It is properly used to fund one-time things. You can't fund things like salary increases and tax reduction out of surplus, but you can fund things like this. With all of that, I just want to say, we need to know that this is one of the potential pitfalls of this bill. But again, since it's part of a package which has more good than bad, I'm going to vote for it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate on the bill? The gentleman 37th, Dr. Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chair of Finance please yield for a few questions? Thank you. Not having the privilege to serve with you on the Committee on Finance, and I was unable to listen in yesterday, just have a few questions. So this is the part of the package that my friend was referring to, where we just, on the previous bill, we had talked about, that's the incentive, the tax breaks that we're offering. This would allow us, if everything else passed, to make a public investment by using money from the American Rescue Plan and backfilling certain state agencies where we can send it through in order to, on our next bill, we're going to take that money out of those agencies and use that for the public investment and infrastructure around the plant, correct?
The gentleman's correct. What this supplemental appropriation is doing, we are setting up new line items of appropriations, okay? And we're giving federal spending authority basically to reimburse the agencies for those qualified expenses that they had for the first half of fiscal year 2022. That's all this supplemental appropriation is doing, in the amount of $157,500,000.
Okay, which is from the American Rescue Plan.
It is from the American Rescue Plan, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for clearing that up, Mr. Speaker. Can I briefly speak to the bill?
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
Okay, thank you. And in listening to the debate on the previous bill and listening to some of the remarks, I also want to give credit where credit's due. I'm also very excited about this project, and I will be supporting each part of the package in hopes that this public investment attracts this huge private investment and will be good for not just Mason County, but Cabell, Putnam, Kanawha, the whole state. So I would like to give credit to the governor, his staff, the Economic Development Office, the Secretary of Commerce. I think we're going to find that there are some other folks that helped attract this project. Our senior senator's office did some work on this as well. And I've heard earlier, as some of us were also taking credit, congratulating ourselves on some of the previous work that's been done by the legislature to create a business climate that would attract this kind of investment in West Virginia. I think without this piece shows that business climate alone is not what is needed, that we also have to make this public investment in infrastructure around the plant. If business climate alone did it, we wouldn't have this part of the package. And make no mistake, we are able to contribute this part of this public investment to attract this private investment. We were able to do this because of the American Rescue Plan. And I'd like to say that that was a bipartisan effort from D.C., but it wasn't. One party is largely responsible for sending that money to the states. And so I would also like to give credit where credit is due And while we can all join together and vote for this package, I think I hope you would join me in saying, let's go Biden.
Is there further debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 90 ayes, 2 nays, and 8 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 1002, making supplemental appropriation of federal funds to Governor's Office, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 90 ayes, 2 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on second reading.
Senate Bill 1003, decreasing and increasing existing appropriations from State Fund General Revenue.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the constitutional rule requiring the bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, read a third time, and put upon its passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 80 ayes, 11 nays, and 9 members absent. 4/5 of members present having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares the motion adopted. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Senate Bill 1003, decreasing and increasing existing appropriations from State Fund General Revenue.
Gentleman 64th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this supplemental appropriation bill reduces specific current fiscal year general revenue funded items in the Department of Health and Human Resources and the Department of Homeland Security, which have already been incurred and may be funded from other sources. The bill also increases, the supplemental appropriation also increases an existing item of appropriation in the Department of Economic Development, Office of the Secretary, in the amount of $157,500,000, and it includes directive language stating that the amount shall be transferred to the Economic Development Promotion and Closing Fund. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 88 ayes, 3 nays, and 9 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 1003, decreasing and increasing existing appropriations from State Fund General Revenue.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 89 ayes, 3 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on second reading.
Senate Bill 1004, decreasing items of appropriation from State Fund General Revenue.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Householder moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Householder Number 1, 1-10.
Gentleman from 64th to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a technical amendment as exactly adopted by the Finance Committee for the corresponding House Bill 104 to correct the amount for the line item in the institutional facilities operations consistent with the amount for that line item in Senate Bill 1003. I urge adoption.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. Is there debate on the amendment? If not, the question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the constitutional rule requiring the bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with, that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, read a third time, and put upon its passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 81 ayes, 11 nays, and 8 members absent. 4/5 of members present having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the constitutional rule suspended. The clerk will please read the bill a third time.
Senate Bill 1004, decreasing items of appropriation from state fund general revenue.
Gentleman 64th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this supplemental appropriation reduces specific current fiscal year general revenue funded items in the Department of Health and Human Resources and the Department of Homeland Security, which may be funded from other sources. The supplemental appropriation also increases an existing item of appropriation in the Department of Economic Development, the Office of the Secretary, in the amount of $157,500,000, and it includes directive language stating that the amount shall be transferred to the Economic Development Promotion and Closing Fund. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 86 ayes, 6 nays, and 8 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 1004, decreasing items of appropriation from state fund general revenue.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were no. The clerk will reopen the machine. Delegate from the 50th, Garcia, your vote did not register on that question. Now, has every member voted? Okay, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 88 ayes, 4 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on second reading.
Senate Bill 1005, expiring funds and supplementing appropriations to various state agencies.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Householder moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Householder Number 1, 1-10.
Gentleman of 64th to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is a technical amendment exactly as adopted by the Finance Committee for the corresponding House Bill 105 to correct the amount for the line item for the institutional facilities operations consistent with the amount for that line item in Senate Bill 1003. I urge adoption.
Is there the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. Is there debate on the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the rule requiring the bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, read a third time and put upon its passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 84 ayes, 8 noes, and 8 members absent. 4/5 of members present having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the rule suspended. Clerk will please read the bill a third time.
Senate Bill 1005, expiring funds and supplementing appropriations to various state agencies.
Gentleman of the 64th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this supplemental appropriation bill expires $157,500,000 in federal funds to the unappropriated surplus balance of the state fund general revenue and supplements and amends certain general revenue funds of the Department of Health and Human Resources and the Department of Homeland Security by creating new lines of appropriation therein. This will allow for the funding of eligible expenses within those spending units for the second half of the current fiscal year. I urge passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the lady in the 49th. Clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 88 ayes, 4 nays, and 8 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 1005, expiring funds and supplementing appropriations to various state agencies.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 90 ayes, 2 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on second reading.
Senate Bill 1006, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Economic Development, Office of Secretary.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady in the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and the bill be read a third time and put upon its passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the rule requiring the bill be read on 3 separate days be dispensed with and that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, read a third time, and put upon its passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 80 ayes, 12 nays, and 8 members absent. 4/5 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the rule suspended. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Senate Bill 1006, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Economic Development, Office of Secretary.
Gentleman from the 64th, delegate householder to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this supplemental appropriation bill increases the appropriation to the Department of Economic Development, Office of the Secretary, in the amount of $15 million from the unappropriated balance of the state fund general revenue. The bill includes directive language stating that the money shall be transferred to the Economic Development Promotion and Closing Fund. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman from the 27th, delegate Gerhardt, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I ask my friend, the finance chair, to yield?
Yes.
Setting aside the dollars that we have committed today to the Economic Development Department, could you remind us all how much money we committed to the closing fund, if you will, in the regular budget?
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, we originally started with $1 million, and then last session We gave a supplemental appropriation of $30 million, so we have $31 million. And now with this $15 million, we would have $46 million.
So we started at $1 million, we added $30 million, and the suggestion today is to add $15 million, making the total outside of today's activities $46 million.
The gentleman's correct. Yes.
In testimony yesterday before the Finance Committee, do you recall approximately the balance that is currently left of that $31 million in that fund?
I believe testimony said it right around 25% was used, I believe.
I thought that they said just in excess of $20 million was left. But,
okay.
But there is an excess of $15 million.
Gentleman's correct.
And it was alluded to yesterday that there is a spend for $15 million, thus the $15 million being transferred into this. Is that correct?
Gentleman's correct. There's a new investment, new announcement that has not been made, and that's for this.
But it was clear that there was well in excess of in that fund to pay for that amount.
Yes, gentleman's correct. It was right around $15 million or a little more.
And we are over halfway through the budget year where those dollars are, that $31 million was placed
right, and this is all coming from unspent money, general revenue unappropriated.
Right, but what I'm saying is in that account, we're past the halfway point on that budget year.
The gentleman's correct.
So there is, after that spend, which there's full authority to make that $15 million spend. Is that fair?
The gentleman's correct.
Then we have, by some estimate, at least in excess of $5 million still available for usage for its intended purpose.
Right, and keep in mind, as you're aware, that our economic development team is always out there working hand in hand to try to, conduct new business, to get new business to come into the state. Obviously, that $15 million that we're talking about that's sitting there could be used for something that we're not quite aware of yet. So.
That's correct. But while we're keeping in mind, our original funding intent was $1 million, correct?
That's correct.
So with this, we would be 46 times our original funding intent.
Right, and like I said, this is for a new project. There hasn't been an announcement yet, but I'm sure it's forthcoming.
Well, like I said, our intent, or you would agree, the original intent of this body, by amendment in the Finance Committee, was $1 million.
Well, so far the original intent has been $31 million is what this body has passed.
Yeah, unfortunately that wasn't the question, so maybe we'll stick to the question. The original intent in the budget bill was $1 million.
When we first started, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speak to the bill.
The gentleman is recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what the investment that is intended other than the amounts that were alluded to in the Finance Committee yesterday, which indicated about $60 million. So we're talking about $15 million to be committed to a $60 million project, 25% of the total project to come to this fund, from this fund. The Economic Development Department has full authority and has funds available to do that. I fail to understand, though, why we would be backfilling that budget right now in a special session with nothing else intended when there are more than ample dollars available to accomplish the purpose that this body voted to accomplish. Matter of fact, not only are there more than ample, there are 5 times the number of dollars available than this body approved in the budget bill. I want economic development, and this closing circumstance eludes me a little bit, and we've approved today 315 times what we approved originally into that closing fund. But I fail to understand why we want to spend that surplus now. We've got 60 days from now in order to add to this fund. Nothing that we do now is going to preclude that $15 million from being spent by that agency. Currently, I don't know that this is a prudent movement of money when we have ample opportunity to move it over the regular session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 42nd, I got Longneck is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, you guys probably have seen my red vote several times this morning on suspending the rules. Now, I reluctantly voted for that bill, Senate Bill 1001, not because I'm anti-business. I'm absolutely 100% pro-business, and I love the fact that we're going to get a manufacturing company of this stature to come to this state. I'm happy about that. But I want to read something for you real quick, 2 definitions, lest we forget. We're a supermajority of a GOP, and I'm talking to my Republican colleagues at this point, guys. We're a supermajority that traditionally has stood for fiscal conservatism and free market capitalism. I'll read a little definition I share with my students in high school. Free market capitalism. Feel free to Google it if you need to. Free market capitalism, an economic system which does not rely upon government intervention or manipulation to provide market solutions and solve private industry problems. That's the free market capitalism. Now, let me remind some of you that may have been out of high school for a long, long time what my high school students know today. There's another economic system. It's called crony capitalism. Crony capitalism is an economic system characterized by close, mutually advantageous relationships between business leaders and government leaders. Now, I don't know if what we've done today is crony capitalism. I hope it's not. I hope that this deal that we've pushed through today will benefit West Virginians like none other bill has before. But I urge my colleagues to slow down. We're suspending constitutional rules, pushing through something. Several delegates today on both sides of the aisle has said, not sure what the rush is for. I'll tell you what the rush is for. There's a State of the State address coming up tomorrow night, and there's a dog and pony show planned. That's the rush. But my constituents have the right to hear these deals played out in the proper committees. I hope we're getting this right, guys. I really do. And I'll just leave you with those 2 definitions. The difference between free market capitalism versus crony capitalism. Why the rush? Thank you.
Is there debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? Gentleman with 64th Docket Householder.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen, just let me try to ease your mind a little bit. This is not crony capitalism. There is a new substantial project, a new investment coming out in the Morgantown area, and that's what this supplemental appropriation bill, we're using general revenue unappropriated dollars for that investment. Now, keep in mind, at any time, whatever the legislature giveth, the legislature can taketh away. So when you hear my good friend from the 27th stand up and say, hey, we're putting an additional $15 million into a closing fund, at any time we have the ability to take that money back out of that fund. So rest assured, this is another big economic announcement, and when we're going to hear about it, I would think probably next forthcoming days. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 83 ayes, 9 nays, and 8 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 1006, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Economic Development, Office of Secretary.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 86 ayes, 6 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on second reading.
House Bill 101, relating to establishment of the West Virginia Industrial Advancement Act.
Bill will be advanced to third reading.
House Bill 102, making supplemental appropriation of federal funds to the Governor's Office, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Bill will be advanced to third reading. Lady from 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Subject to announcements, I move the House stand in recess until 4 p.m.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the House stand in recess until 4 p.m. Are there announcements? If not, those, yes, gentleman from 13th, Douglas Penson is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that tomorrow morning, beginning at 9 a.m., we'll have a prayer gathering in the lower rotunda. This is sponsored by the Faith First Caucus as well as the House and Senate Prayer Caucus. That will begin at 9 a.m. We'll be joined with pastors and lay folks from all around our state to pray as we start our regular session. I would encourage all legislators that are available, if they could join us, 9 a.m. lower rotunda for prayer gathering. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 29th, Douglas Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Joint Committee on Government Organization will be having a meeting, their interim meeting, at 2 p.m. here in the House chamber. It is on the topic of nuclear energy production and so forth. There will be a lot of different speakers coming from around the country today, and that will be at 2 o'clock, and it will run to about 4 p.m. And we are having it in a chamber, so even if you're not on the committee and would like to come, we'd love to have you there. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 40th, Douglas Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Joint Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet in the chamber at noon. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? Gentleman from the 10th, Douglas Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Natural Gas Development and Manufacturing will meet this afternoon at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question is on the lady's motion that the House stand in recess until 4 o'clock. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is in recess until 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Senate will come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House has amended and passed Senate Bill 1004, decreasing items of appropriation from State Fund General Revenue.
Message be received. Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1004.
The Senator from Brooke moves that the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1004. Is there discussion? Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of the bill is a supplemental decreased appropriation from the Department of Health and Human Resources, Department of Homeland Security. The amendment that the House made is purely technical, and it was to correct the amount for the line item for institutional facilities operations consistent with the amount for that line item in Senate Bill 1003. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1004. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent, and not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senator from Brooke.
President, I move that the bill be made effective for passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Brooke moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House amended and passed Senate Bill 1005, expiring funds and supplementing appropriations to various state agencies.
Message be received. Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1005.
Senator from Brooke moves that the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1005. Is there discussion? Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, the amendments that the House made were purely technical to correct the amount for the line item for institutional facilities operations, consistent with the amount for that line item in Senate Bill 1003. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1005. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent, and not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used upon its passage be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Brooke moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House. Communications from the executive.
I have Senate Executive Message 1, dated January 11th, 2022, addressed to the honorable members of the West Virginia Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully submit the following nominations for your advice and consent. There are 53 nominations listed herein. Notice of these appointments was previously provided to the appropriate legislative staff at the time the appointments were made. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
Message be received. Senator from Pleasants.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent
that the nominations contained in Senate Executive Message 1 be taken up for immediate consideration.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Pleasants.
Mr. President, I move that all nominations contained in Senate Executive Message 1, with the exception of number 18 and 33, be confirmed.
The senator from Pleasants moves that all nominations contained in Senate Executive Message 1, with the exception of number 18 and number 33, be confirmed. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare that all nominations contained in the Senate Executive Message 1, with the exception of numbers 18 and number 33, are confirmed. Senator from Pleasants.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that nominee number 18 be confirmed.
The senator from Pleasants moves that nominee number 18 be confirmed. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to be excused from voting under Senate Rule 43.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. You will be excused from voting. Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, Senator, be at ease for one moment. Good now. On this question, 29 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent, not voting, and 1 excused. More than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare that nominee number 18 is confirmed. Senator from Pleasants.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that nominee number 33 be confirmed.
Senator from Pleasants moves that nominee number 33 be confirmed. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 19 yeas, 11 nays, 4 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the nominee number 33 is confirmed. Reports from standing committees. So it'll be at ease. Messages from the executive.
I have Senate Executive Message number 2, dated January 11th, 2022, addressed to the Honorable Craig Blair, President of the West Virginia Senate. Dear President Blair, the following is the fiscal year 2022 official estimate general revenue, statement of revenues by source, which I submitted as revised to you on June 24th, 2021, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
Message be received and will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Reports from standing committees.
There are none.
Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills.
There are none.
Resolutions.
There are none.
Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
There is none.
Bills on third reading.
There are none.
Bills on second reading.
There are none.
Bills on first reading.
There are none.
Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Miscellaneous business. Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move that the Senate stand in recess until 4 p.m. today.
Is there objection? All those in favor will vote or say aye. Those opposed, no. We will be, the ayes have it, and we're in recess until 4 p.m. today.